Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Houston, Texas. It's time for Houston Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hello, Houston. Trisha Stutzel here, bringing you another awesome episode of Houston Business Radio. I'm so excited to have this guest back. She's been on before. We were talking about business. This time, we're talking about a project. Nancy Mills, Business Prosperity Advisor, is on with me today. Nancy, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Trisha. Thank you.
I'm so excited that you're here. We were just having a conversation the other day, and this project came up. I'm like, Nancy, you have to come on the show to talk about this project. I'm so excited about what you're doing with Bluebonnet Equine Foster Program. So first, before we get into that, will you just remind our listeners who Nancy is? Tell us a little bit about you and what you do in your business, and then we'll jump into the project.
Sure, Trisha. I live in the Houston area. I am a business prosperity advisor, which means I help business owners make their company more valuable and more attractive to buyers and investors.
I love it. So, if you're interested in hearing that, if you didn't already listen to that show, just do a search for Nancy Mills and you will find that show and you can listen back to it and see if you need something from her on the business side of things. Let's jump into the project. Tell me more about the Bluebonnet Equine Foster Program, Nancy.
Okay. And just as a disclaimer, I don't work for Bluebonnet. I'm merely a citizen that wants to help them because I believe in their mission and I see how well run and organized they are. So I'm not affiliated with them officially.
Okay.
I'm a proponent. Bluebonnet Equine is a horse rescue organization based in College Station, Texas, which is near A&M University. And it's run by a veterinarian, and they rescue and rehabilitate and adopt out horses that have been neglected or forcibly removed from their homes or voluntarily given up.
Mhm. So, Nancy, why in the world would you get involved with this program?
I've always loved horses, Trisha. I was lucky enough to grow up with horses in the suburbs, which used to be a rural part of Houston, and I know how wonderful they are and what great companions and friends they can be. And now that I live in an area where I can't have horses, I've been dreaming of getting one. And I know there are a lot of horses in need of homes. I would like to add that Texas, out of all the U.S. states, has the highest number of horses in need of adoption because, of course, we're a big state, but we just have a lot of horses here. And they have been traditionally, as economies fall and rise, they've been difficult to care for. And they get pushed aside as people can't keep them or keep them well enough. So we have the largest horse population in the country in need of adoption. And so in the back of my mind for years now, I've said I'm going to adopt a horse when I have land. And then recently in the past 6 months, I've realized that even though I'm not ready, I can still help out. And I was searching for an organization. I started with the SPCA in Houston and realized that this Bluebonnet farm services all of Texas, and they're specifically focused only on horses. And as I researched them more, and now I've been talking with the people there, I realized this is the organization that needs the most help.
I love that, Nancy. And I know you did your homework before you chose an organization to serve. So just because I know you and how you like to engage with people, and I think that's really beautiful. Let's dive into what they need because we're talking about fostering. Some people may be listening and saying,
Right.
well, what in the world does that mean? So let's talk about that foster program, exactly what you're looking for, and then I'd like to back into some stories after that.
Yeah, sure, exactly. And what I didn't mention for your last question is that just because I can't help any horses right now directly, I'm trying to help them indirectly through our community. We have wonderful people in Texas that are big-hearted, and they just don't know that these opportunities exist. So I'm just here to spread the word and see what other people are out there that want to participate. And together we can make a huge difference with these beautiful animals. So fostering is a temporary home for someone. Of course, people have heard of fostering children, and you can also foster dogs and cats from your local animal rescue. And the benefit of fostering an animal for the animal is that, first of all, they might have been mistreated in the past. So they have a fear of humans. Sometimes they have health issues where they need extra food, extra care, extra love. We can't let that scare anybody off, because if someone does apply to be a foster caregiver through this organization, they will receive a stipend, which is a monthly amount to pay for the food, as well as reimbursements for vet bills and all the other care. So if someone would like to be a foster caregiver, they do not need to spend much of their own money, but they would fill out an application to be approved that they have the right type of environment that's safe for the animal. And then they would wait for when there's a need, an overflow of animals, because when they go and rescue horses from ranches, sometimes they can take 100 at a time. And so Bluebonnet doesn't have that capacity all the time. So they need these helpful citizens to have already applied and be ready for when this overflow happens and there's a need suddenly. And so to apply to be a foster caregiver, then you would just give temporary care to this animal, and they're up for adoption. So when they get adopted out, then the foster caregiver would, give the animal back.
Yeah. So specifically, Nancy, what are you looking for in these applicants as foster homes?
Great question. So I have some details here. I have a little presentation. So what they need is land with a fence around it.
Okay.
Each city or community has guidelines on the number of horses that can be per acre. Like where I grew up, we could have 2 horses per acre. So it depends on your neighborhood, your community, what the guidelines are would be the number of animals you could care for at one time. You don't have to have a barn. It is preferred, obviously, but it's not even required. And you don't even have to know how to care for a horse, because Bluebonnet will provide you a mentor. So you need land with a fence, ideally some sort of shelter. It doesn't even have to be a closed up barn. It could be a lean-to or a 3-sided shelter is really good enough for any horse. And then to fill out an application on their website, and become a member of Bluebonnet Equine, which right now is only $25 a year. So the individual would fill out an application, pay for a yearly membership, and then just wait to be contacted.
Okay. And you're focused on a particular area. Like you have some connections in the greater Houston area. And you and I were having a conversation about I have some connections in rural South Texas, which could be really beneficial to Bluebonnet, these folks
Yes.
who have space. So can you talk about like who you're really reaching out to and what your goal is? We talk about
Okay.
that too.
Thank you. My goal is 10 successful applications between now and March 15th, 2025. And that would be obviously, there's not a need right now for all 10 people to immediately take an animal. So that is just fill out an application, be approved, and wait for when they need you. That's my goal, is 10 successful applications. And I am focusing on the greater Houston area only because this is where I am and because I know more people here. But like you said, Tricia, there is more land when we get outside of the metro areas, and there's more likelihood that people are, have the capacity to keep these animals. So the program works all across Texas. So there's no restriction in that matter. And if people are in the major metropolitan areas, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, it's more likely that they can get also the transportation for free, because Bluebonnet has a great number of volunteers already with trailers. And even though on their website they say transportation will not be provided, they told me directly on the phone that there's so many of their volunteers are driving to the major cities in the metro areas that most likely transportation would also be provided.
That's wonderful. So,
Yes.
what I'm hearing is we're looking for people who have enough space, land. It needs to be fenced.
Yes.
Having a barn is not a requirement, but some sort of shelter. You don't have to be a skilled horse owner because you could get a mentor. But it
Yes.
sounds like a really great fit, Nancy, as somebody who may have had horses in the past
Right.
or they have less horses than they used to, and they could take on another horse as a foster. Is that
Yes. That's exactly right, Tricia. And like you pointed out before we started recording, they need to be able bodied. I mean, in some way or another, like if they are never home, uh, that won't really work because they do need an eye kept on them. They need to be looked out for. If someone doesn't want to walk out into the pasture, that's an issue because they really do need the human contact. Even you can get an automatic feeder, but that's not really the care. These animals need some tender loving care, some soft spoken voice, some little scratches behind the ear. They need to be lovingly interacted with.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I were talking about how therapeutic horses can be. And so, just as a reminder to people who have had horses in the past and may not feel like they're ready or haven't even thought about fostering a horse, remember how therapeutic they can be. And if you're a first timer, it's it's almost life changing. I think, Nancy, you were telling
Yes.
me a story about a horse that you had put into a therapy program.
Yes. When I lived in Arizona for graduate school and I was moving to Europe and I had my horse that I had grown up with and he was my best friend growing up. He we grew up together. He was so gentle, but he was a little bit wild because when he turned 2 and then we could ride him, he still had so much energy that I got in some pretty hairy situations if that ever happened, but he got tamer and tamer as the years went on, and he lived a really long life, but I was leaving Arizona and was praying about what I could do with my best friend, and, the answer came to me really quickly to find a equine therapy facility, and I found one right away. They were new, they were newly setting up, so he was their first animal, and it was for children that have MS.
Wow.
And children with MS, they, have great physical benefit from being on the back of a horse because when the horse walks, it moves the rider's hips in a way that mimics walking, and when kids aren't walking well by themselves, the movement of the horse greatly helps their physical well-being, but the emotional component is just as important. And they also started bringing kids over there that just had emotional difficulties, maybe from troubled homes or other problems that they had. And one of my favorite stories that my horse did for someone was there's this teenage boy that had stopped talking to anyone. He was not communicating to his family, to his teachers, to his friends. He had completely stopped talking. But he would go out to this place and he would talk and talk to my horse. And I love that story, and, when my horse finally died, they erected a memorial. They called it a memorial, trail for him because he brought so much joy and healing to so many young people.
Wow.
And so the animals, yes, they can definitely benefit children, and it's also, builds courage in children because they can look so intimidating and scary, the big horse with a little person, but once you interact and see how gentle the animal is, then it builds a lot of courage in the person. But also for adults, we get just as many benefits from being around them.
Yeah, absolutely. Nancy, what was your horse's name?
Ramon.
Ramon. I love that. And so now there's a trail named for him. That's
Yes.
beautiful. I was sharing with you that my husband has never had never interfaced with horses, and a veteran friend of ours who we are very close with lives in Arizona, and he and his wife adopted at least 4 wild mustangs from a farm that where the owner had passed. And so I grew up with horses like you did. I didn't have one that was mine, but I grew up on a farm, so I had access to horses. And when we go to Arizona and visit our friends and see these horses, it's so therapeutic. And my husband, you can just see the calmness that comes over him. And even if you're just brushing them, right?
Yes,
And it's equal between the human and the animal. The animal
it
gets
is.
so much from it. Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yes, it is. It's a real connection. It's a beautiful experience.
It is. I'm so excited that you're working on this program. So your goal is to get 10 applications approved of families who have land and a place to foster a horse
Yes.
when the Bluebonnet Farms has a need. Right now, they don't have an overflow need, but you need to have those applicants in place and ready to go for when there is a need.
Yes, and they said that's the best help that people can do is fill out the application early and be ready.
Perfect. You mentioned something else, Nancy. Uh, so if we have listeners that don't have land, they don't have room to foster a horse, what can they be doing?
Thank you for that question. We would ask that they spread the word, that they just think of anybody they might know in Texas that they could directly mention this to, or if they don't know anybody in Texas or don't know anybody with land, just to somehow make a post about it on your social media or anywhere you choose.
I love that. Can you tell folks the website that they can find more information about Bluebonnet?
Yes. It's bluebonnetequine.org, and the foster application page is /foster. So that's spelled blue, BLUEE, BONN, bonnet with two N's, ETEQUINE.org/foster.
Fantastic. And Nancy, your goal is to have these applicants approved in March, middle of March. Can they still, if they hear this playback at
Of
some
course.
point, they still apply?
Absolutely. It's an ongoing need. It will not go away.
Mhm.
It please, anytime you hear this or think of this or are inspired or moved by this, anytime in the future, please do this anyway.
So if you're a horse lover, if you know someone who is a horse lover, if you're in the state of Texas, please reach out. Nancy, would you prefer that they go straight to the website to the foster application, or shall they reach out to you as well?
They're welcome to reach out to me as well. I can give my phone number, but if they, when they're doing the application, if they can say, "How did you hear about us?" If you'd
Mhm.
please write Nancy Mills so that we can keep track of the people that I bring there. I get nothing out of it but deep satisfaction and joy, but I would love it if we could keep track of who does go there from this message.
I love that.
But my number, if I may give it, if people
Please.
want to text me,
Yes.
is 281-317-0347. And I can answer any questions because I couldn't go over all the details right now, but I can provide people with a lot more information if they have any doubts or questions.
You're doing amazing work for the community. So serving the community is what it's all about, right?
Yes,
And you and I haven't connected in months. It felt like when we spoke just recently. And for this to be happening right now, there was some reason why we were drawn together just recently, right?
right.
So glad that you've been on the show with me today. Can you, as we get to the back end of our conversation here, I'd love for you to share. You've shared some personal stories around why you have such an affinity for horses and you love being around them. But I know that you may have a story that you'd like to share about Bluebonnet Equine in particular.
Sure. Yes, and Bluebonnet has a lot of great case studies of their own on their website, but my happy story was the first family that I brought in as an applicant to this. They were referred to me by someone in the business community because every meeting I have, I talk about this as well. And someone always pipes up with, "You should talk to so and so." And this is a former military family, and they have land. They live outside of Houston. They're not anywhere near the city, but they just have big hearts and some time and some space. And so when I told them about this opportunity, they were so excited, this husband and wife, and they have a daughter. And so they said, "How can we get involved?" And so they filled out the application right away. And they keep thanking me just for that because they didn't know that this thing even existed, that anyone can foster a horse and help out this way. And it makes them feel so good to know that they can contribute in this way and use their land for a positive purpose.
I love that. And just to reiterate, you said there is a stipend for anybody who's doing foster care. So Bluebonnet Equine will actually help with the cost of the fostering. So that's not something people should be concerned about, right? Or
Exactly.
afraid of. Yeah. Okay.
That's exactly right. They have a stipend for the food. It depends on the situation, more or less, depending on the animal's needs, plus a reimbursement for vet bills and farrier bills, which are the hoof care.
Okay, fantastic. Um, we talked a little bit before we started recording about adoption as well. Your focus today is on fostering and getting those applications filled out and the humans approved for readiness to bring on a foster horse. But there are also opportunities for adoption.
Yes, that's correct, and that's a great point. There's always a need for adoptive homes as well. Adoption, of course, is a permanent home given to the animal. The approval process, I'm not familiar with it yet. I haven't gone through it. Um, the stipend is no longer available. So if a person wants to adopt, that means they're taking full responsibility for that horse. But there's a lot of them on the website. You can read about them. You can see their pictures, and then I believe anybody can make an appointment and go and visit these animals and interact with them. And I believe their website is kept up to date with which animals are up for adoption. But aside from the foster home, the Bluebonnet Equine's biggest need is adoptive homes for these horses.
Beautiful. Again, if you're curious and you want more information, certainly you can reach directly out to Nancy. I will put her phone number in the show notes so that you can grab it from there and reach out to her directly, or go to bluebonnetequine.org and find more information there /foster, because we're all going to help Nancy reach her goal of getting those 10 applicants in March. Nancy, I know you prepared a whole lot of notes and I asked you lots of fun things, but is there anything that you put together that you wanted to share today with the audience that we haven't touched on yet?
Well, I would like to just say that the timing is perfect because we're going into rodeo season, and tomorrow is Go Texan Day, where we all celebrate the rodeo season getting underway. And I know thousands and tens of thousands of people come to the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And for all of you that love the rodeo and that love the livestock and the horses and everything that goes along with being rodeo, this is your way to have your own part of the legend of being a Texan and giving back in that way. Because again, I love Texas. I love the big hearts of the citizens that live here. And I know we can do this, and we can make this program very successful.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Nancy. You know, I continue to find more and more ways that we're connected and how our energy just puts us together all the time. We do have an Arizona connection, we have a horse connection, we have a business
Yes.
connection. And I just love having these conversations with you. I would love if you keep me posted around how things are going. Anyone who's listening today or even in the future, please go to the website, check it out. If you have land and you feel like you're a good candidate to be a foster, go fill out an application. It's pretty easy. You just got to get your information out there, and when there is a need, then we're ready.
Exactly. Right. Thank you, Tricia. This was such a blessing. You are such a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm so excited that you came on with me today. I can't wait to have you back. Maybe we'll have to have you back in the fall. You can give us an update on business and how this Bluebonnet project went for you.
I will.
Um, and I hope you have an amazing day.
You too. And thanks to all the listeners out there.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you
Again,
so much.
everything in the show notes so that you can reach out to Nancy or get more information for the Bluebonnet Equine, bluebonnetequine.org. That's all the time we have for today's show. Join us next time for another exciting episode of Houston Business Radio. Until then, stay tuned, stay inspired, and keep thriving in the Houston business community.